The late afternoon sun bathed our living room in a warm glow as I sat on the couch, staring blankly at my phone. The sounds of distant laughter echoed in the backyard where my sister and brother were enjoying the September warmth. I could smell the grilled burgers my father was cooking, their rich, smoky aroma mixing with the fresh scent of the nearby flower beds my mother had tirelessly cared for all summer. But it all felt like a thin layer of paint over a crumbling wall. "Are you coming outside, or are you just going to stew in there all day?" My sister called, her tone light, but I could sense the underlying tension. It always lingered just beneath the surface, a churning ocean hiding jagged rocks. I looked up, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. "Yeah, I'll be out in a minute." My heart sank as I responded. What I really wanted was to curl up in bed and disappear under the covers. My thoughts raced to the letter I had found that morning, the one that changed everything. "Hey, what's up?" My brother stepped into the room, his casual demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos brewing inside me. He was holding a plate piled high with burgers, each patty glistening under the soft living room light. I could feel the heat radiating off of him, his easy confidence practically pulsing in the air. Just, thinking. My voice cracked as I spoke, betraying more than I intended. I put my phone down, suddenly hyper-aware of how easy it was to slip into silence, how heavy words could become when balanced on the precipice of confrontation. "Did you find out what Mom and Dad were talking about in the kitchen earlier?" My brother shrugged, his eyes flickering with a hint of surprise. My parents often spoke in hushed tones when they thought we couldn't hear, but they didn't realize how well I listened. Conversations would drift through the air like the scent of food, and though the words were often muffled, the vibes were crystal clear. "Something about an inheritance," he replied, shoving a bite of burger into his mouth, chewing casually as if they were planning a holiday instead of dissecting the family's future. "I think they're like, finally making some decisions about that old house. You know, the one Grandma left them." My chest tightened at the mention of the house. That old Victorian was a real piece of work, but it represented so much more than just bricks and mortar. It was once filled with laughter, family gatherings, and unspoken secrets. And I could almost feel the shadow of favoritism creeping in like a dark cloud. My mind wandered to the letter again, the way it had appeared so suddenly, as if placed there to throw me off balance. "Yeah, I heard." The bitterness laced my words before I could stop it. My brother raised an eyebrow, pausing to look at me more seriously. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern creeping into his expression. I could tell he sensed the tension under my skin, the way it was like static electricity zapping through the air as our family dynamics shifted around us. "No, not really." My voice softened, revealing my vulnerability. The familiar tears threatened to spill. I hated feeling like this, especially with my brother. He was usually the one to talk me down from my ledge. But I couldn't hide my emotions any longer. "Mom and Dad are acting like nothing is wrong, but I feel like I'm just supposed to play nice while they decide about the house. And about everything." "What do you mean?" he pressed, his youthful naivete colliding with the gravity of my emotions. "Dad wants to keep the house, but Mom is secretly talking about selling it." I took a deep breath, hoping that admitting it would lighten the weight in my chest. "And you know they did that thing before when they chose you to help them renovate that guest room over me." My fingers twitched, tingling from the fire of frustration underneath. "It feels like they're choosing sides." He frowned, his brow furrowing in thought. "They're just trying to figure it all out. Maybe they think that you are so busy with your job that they do not want to bother you with this stuff." I scoffed, rolling my eyes. Busy enough that my opinion doesn't matter." "It has nothing to do with how busy I am. It is just unfair, they always leave me out. You know how they can get." His voice hesitated, weighing his words carefully. "They've made their priorities pretty clear, you're just not as involved." My heart raced, anger bubbling just beneath the surface, threatening to explode. "Involved? They're always dragging you into their decisions. I feel like they keep me sidelined as if I am a nuisance. Remember when they arranged that trip to the beach last month? You got the invitation, and I didn't even know it was happening until it was practically over. They do not want to see me at all. I looked really bad when I told them I could not go, okay?" He shot back, his face flushing. "We all have things we deal with. It is just easier for them to pretend everything is fine." My hands were shaking now, the frustration building into a tangible thing around us. Each second felt heavy and charged, and I could feel a storm of emotions building, curling around my heart like vines wrapping around a gate, ready to burst. Before my brother could respond, my sister popped her head into the room again. "What are you two arguing about?" Her bright smile did not match the tension in the air. It was as if she had walked into an entirely different universe. She struck an impressive pose, hands on her hips, the quintessential golden child ready to swoop in and diffuse the chaos. "Talking about the house," my brother replied, his tone lighter now as he shifted the focus away from our unresolved emotions. He took another bite of his burger, probably to blunt the rising tension. "Oh, that, I overheard Mom and Dad discussing that they want to take a family vote on what to do with it." "Vote?" I echoed, my mind racing again. My family had never operated like a democracy. What if they already have a plan? Come on, it will be fun. Everyone gets to share their ideas, she said, a laugh escaping her lips. At least it means they're taking our opinions seriously this time. Maybe they can finally figure everything out. Taking our opinions seriously. I felt my voice rising, turning sharp as it sliced through the air like a dull knife. What if their idea seriously screws things up? I mean, just look at how this works. They talk about their plans behind closed doors and then they treat it like we're all just going to agree with them. I am done. I slammed my fist against the couch, the sound echoing harshly in the silence that followed. Easy there, Evelyn, my brother cautioned. My sister's laugh faded, replaced by a confused frown. Why are you getting so worked up? It is just an old house, my sister said, her carefree demeanor faltering under my glare. There's no need to take it personal. But it always feels personal. They act like it is nothing to me, but it is everything. My chest felt tight and my breathing quickened. I wanted to scream some more, but it was like the words were stuck in my throat, caught in an emotional chokehold. The atmosphere in the room shifted. My brother looked between us while my sister crossed her arms defensively. Look, it is a family house, but sometimes we have to make tough decisions. Yeah, like dividing up who gets the leftovers. This is our future, I blurted, feeling wild now, untamed with the reality of what was happening. You guys act like there is nothing at stake here. My brother shrugged, seemingly catching on to the growing tension. Why does it have to be like some game where only one person wins? We are all in this together. I'm tired of being in this when it always feels stacked against me. I'm tired of being the afterthought, I replied, my voice trembling. I felt the weight of each word hang in the air, like smoke from the grill wafting in through the window, thick and suffocating. I get that you feel left out, but my sister began, her tone switching to that annoying, condescending cadence, the one that made me want to tear my hair out. Do not but me, I shot back, my voice rising again as I felt the anger pick up momentum like a runaway train. Maybe they can keep it and do what they want. I am so tired. Maybe they would be happier without me. I felt the stinging tears welling up behind my eyes. It took everything in me not to cry, the frustration pushing me to the edge. I didn't want to show them this weakness, especially not now. There was a beat of silence as the gravity of my outburst settled over us. I could see the flicker of surprise in their eyes, the way they darted away as if trying to shield themselves from the impact I had just delivered. What do you really mean by that? My brother asked cautiously, and I could sense how seriously he took my words. I mean, maybe I should just let them deal with all of this without me. If I am the problem, I might as well be out of the picture. The thoughts flooded my mind like murky water. Drowning was a thought I tried to avoid, yet it surged forth. Evelyn, my sister started, her voice faltering. The door creaked open and my parents stepped in. The moment shattered. They were both cheerful, oblivious to the storm brewing just moments before. My father looked up and the smile on his face faltered slightly as he noticed the atmosphere in the living room. Hey, everything all right in here? My mother glanced from my brother to my sister, gauging the intensity. Just a bit of disagreement, but we are good, my brother said, his casual tone contrasting with the tension still thick in the air. I held my breath, watching my mother nod, that knowing smile slowly returning on her face, blissfully unaware of the crack forming in the family dynamics. Good, dinner will be ready soon, make sure you all wash your hands, my father said firmly, moving like a swift breeze before retreating back to the kitchen. As I watched them leave, I could not shake the feeling of betrayal that twisted like a knife in my gut. In this moment where I should feel relief, I only felt ever more lost. My mind circled back to the letter, the secrecy, the unspoken resentment swirling beneath what appeared to be shiny, happy family moments. You should not take it so personally, my sister said quietly, as if attempting to mend the broken air between us. But I was done playing by their rules. Something had to change. I felt a tumult of emotions rise within me, a fierce determination that perhaps it was time I dealt with the truth of our family. I wanted justice for myself, for the unfairness that seemed to rule my life. I might just have to make my move sooner than later. Simmer down, sister. I forced a smile, clenching my fists to steady my resolve. I'll make them see things my way eventually. The words left my mouth with more confidence than I truly felt, but I would not back down. I would find a way to reclaim my voice. As I stepped out of the room and back towards the sounds of laughter, the smell of grilled burgers guiding me, I felt as if a storm was brewing not just outside in the skies, but right within this very family. The rising tension was palpable, and little did they know it would only get worse from here. I stood in the kitchen, the faint smell of burnt toast wafting through the air, mixing uncomfortably with the sweet aroma of the cinnamon-spiced coffee my mother had prepared that morning. My stomach churned, a tumultuous mixture of anger and betrayal swirling within me like a tempest. The clock ticked loudly in the background, each second dragging on as I waited for my parents to return from the meeting with the lawyer. Memories of the heated family discussions peppered my mind, each one a reminder of the growing chasm between us. I could still hear my father's voice echoing in my head, a mix of disappointment and authority, as he'd scolded me for daring to question his decisions. It was almost comical how the delicious breakfast meant to welcome them back from their important meeting had turned into a cold reminder of everything they were hiding from me, just like those burnt pieces of toast stuck to the pan. I heard the front door swing open, the familiar creak reverberating through the hall, and my heart raced. Here they were, my parents, returning from a day they promised would change everything. In a way, I should have been excited for them, but the pit of my stomach only deepened as I remembered the conversation we had at dinner last night about the inheritance. My mind flashed back to the moment when my father had dropped the bombshell, revealing their plans to give a significant portion of my late grandfather's estate to my brother. As if he did not already have enough, his house, his car, his seemingly perfect life. It's about time he does something with his life, I had murmured cautiously amidst the tense atmosphere, trying to maintain the facade of respectability as my mother nodded approvingly. But deep down, I felt the injustice seeping into my skin like ink spreading across a page. My father stepped into the kitchen first, eyes bright yet shadowed with worry. "Evelyn," he said, his tone almost jovial, but it didn't mask the underlying anxiety. "We have a lot to discuss." My mother followed behind him, her steps heavy with the weight of her own guilt. I folded my arms, taking a deliberate step back from the stove. "I hope you both had fun deciding my fate," I shot back, my voice sharper than I intended. I glanced at my brother, who had just entered behind them, an awkward grin plastered on his face. "You sure do look pleased with yourself." My brother's smile faded, replaced by the defensive posture he always took when he knew he was in the wrong. "What's with you?" he asked, crossing his arms in a mirror of my own stance. "It's just a meeting." "Oh, really?" I challenged, my heart pounding as I leaned against the counter. "Just a meeting? You mean the one where they decided to hand you everything while I'm left with crumbs?" My words echoed in the room, each syllable heavy with the unmet desires and dreams shattered under the weight of their unfairness. "Evelyn, this is not the time," my father intervened, an edge creeping into his voice. "This is a family matter and we're trying to do what's best for everyone. We thought you would understand." "Understand? How can I possibly understand why my brother gets to keep the house and part of the estate while I get, what, a couple of $1,000s if I'm lucky? How is that fair?" My chest tightened as I pushed myself off the counter, feeling the heat flood my cheeks. "The house is being passed down to him. It is part of our family and it is what your grandfather wanted," my mother chimed in, trying to steady the situation but only adding fuel to the raging fire. "Your brother needs stability right now, he's just starting to settle down." "Stability?" I could feel the sarcasm dripping from my tongue. "He has stability and he already chose your favorite. Everyone knows how much you pour into his life. What about me?" My father's face paled, a tightening of his jaw signifying he was trying to reprimand me. "Enough, Evelyn," he said firmly. "Your brother's needs are legitimate and you should be happy for him instead of lashing out." "Happy for him?" I could feel the frustration bubbling over, my voice rising. "Happy that you're so blinded by favoritism that you can't even see how unfair this is. I work nearly every day, trying to make something of myself, and all you can see is your precious son who gets everything handed to him." There was a moment of stunned silence, my words hanging heavily in the air. I could see my mother's expression change, a mix of irritation and disappointment crossing her features. "You need to be grateful for what you have, Evelyn," she said finally, her voice laced with that familiar blend of disappointment and authority. "Grateful." I took a step closer to my father, my heart racing. "Grateful for being cut off, grateful for being mocked by the family I thought I could trust. You both chose him over me long ago." "We are not choosing anyone over anyone," my father insisted, the veins along his neck protruding as he fought to maintain an even tone. "This is not about favorites, this is about what is practical." "Practical?" I scoffed, throwing my hands up in disbelief. "You think handing everything to him is practical? You are saddling him with responsibilities he does not deserve while I am left grappling with the scraps. You're fighting for logic when this is simply about keeping him comfortable and throwing me to the wolves." "I can't believe you're being so selfish right now," my brother interjected, his voice rising defensively. "You think this is easy for me, you think it's just handed to me. I work hard too." "Hard, is that what you call it?" I countered, bitterness dripping from my words. "I've watched you glide through life while I fought for every inch." "Enough," my father thundered, the finality of it forcing the air out of my lungs like a punch to the gut. "We will discuss this later." With those words, he turned away and my mother followed suit, her eyes wide with a swirl of emotions, disappointment, anger, perhaps even regret. I stood there, frozen, the remnants of the argument buzzing in the thick air, a palpable tension feelable against my skin. I could hear my brother muttering something under his breath as he faded out of the kitchen, leaving me standing there, wrestling with the swirling thoughts in my own mind. I slammed my fist against the counter, watching as the mosaic tile beneath me shook slightly in response. What did they think? That I would just sit back and watch them pull this from under me? It was not just about money. It was about respect, about acknowledgement. I could not just roll over and let them decide my fate like I was not even a part of this family. They wanted to play house with their precious ideal, treating my brother like some sort of golden child. But that was not how this was going to end. A noise from the hallway caught my attention, and I turned to see my grandfather's old framed picture hanging on the wall, slightly cocked to one side. I had always admired his grit, but it felt tainted now, knowing what was about to go down. It was a sudden flurry of emotions that gripped me, a loathing for being tossed aside but an equally fierce determination rising to the surface. Just as I was about to walk out and confront them again, I heard my sister's voice from the living room, mellow yet with an undercurrent of anxiety. "Evelyn, please don't, just give them some time to breathe. Breathe. Time." Those words echoed in my mind, but I did not want to let it go. I could not. I raised my chin defiantly, resolved to uncover the truth underneath their decisions and manipulations. My fingers trembled slightly, and yet as I stood at the precipice of confrontation, I felt it heavy within me, a new plan taking root, a thirst for justice unfurling against the injustice. "Evelyn," my sister's voice grew louder, but I ignored her as I focused on the door. I would not be the victim they projected. I would find whatever I needed to level the playing field, to put my feet on my own ground once and for all. My heart raced as I turned and marched toward the door, determined to discover what secrets lay within the heart of our family dynamics. The hallway was dimly lit, shadows creeping along the walls, and in those shadows I found my resolve solidifying, preparing myself for the storm ahead. I slammed the door behind me, a sound that reverberated like a drumbeat, punctuating the silence that enveloped the house. I was going to fight for what was mine, whatever it took. And just like that, I stepped into a determined silence, reflecting on my next moves that would reshape everything. As the door thudded shut, I turned, breath hitching as I stared into the chaos of secrets I would soon unravel. Everything was about to change. I stood in the kitchen, the rich aroma of spaghetti sauce, a mix of tomatoes, garlic, and herbs, wafting through the air. It should have felt comforting, like a warm hug from my mother. Instead, it sent a wave of anxiety crashing over me. My hands trembled slightly as I stirred the sauce, the gentle bubbling sound only amplifying the chaos swirling in my mind. My sister sat at the dining table, scrolling through her phone, that maternal confidence sparkling in her eyes as she peered at something I could only guess was insipidly glamorous. I hated that she appeared so at ease when we all knew the storm beneath our roof was about to explode. "Evelyn," the sharp snap of my mother's voice cut through the murmur of cooking sounds. "Can you set the table? Dinner is almost ready. I expect all of us to sit together tonight." "Family time, remember?" My chest tightened at her words. Family time, the term felt like a double-edged sword. It was laced with expectations, smiles plastered on our faces like cheap makeup, even as unspeakable things loomed in the air. I nodded, my heart thudding in my chest, knowing the family dinner would unfurl like a poorly written drama, filled with tension thicker than the sauce simmering on the stove. As I gathered the plates and silverware, I wondered just how many secrets could fit into the hardwood dinner table that had shared countless meals with laughter and love. The memories of my father's past bitter comments floated uninvited to the surface of my mind. "You always wanted the best for your sister, but look where that got you," he had said once. I could still see the way his eyes glinted with a mix of disdain and hurt. Then there was my mother's constant need to pretend that everything was fine, the denial wrapped around her like a protective cloak. The clinks of dishes echoed around the room as I arranged everything meticulously, like laying the groundwork for a battlefield. I glanced over at my sister, catching her eye. She flashed a smile, so effortlessly charming, fitting the golden child mold perfectly. For a moment, that smile enraged me. Did she even know what was coming? Or was she blissfully unaware of the resentment building like a tidal wave? "Ready when you are, mother," my sister chimed, her voice light, filled with an excitement I could not comprehend. I wanted to scream at her that there was nothing exciting about the looming confrontation over our father's inheritance, that she was being willfully blind to the encroaching disaster. A throaty laugh echoed from the living room. My father was watching TV, the raucous sounds of laughter filling the once peaceful space. I could hear his booming voice drifting in and out of conversations, laughing at a joke that I knew wasn't anywhere near as funny as the one simmering in our own home. I set the last plate down, and as I turned to leave the kitchen, my mother made her entrance, wearing an apron that seemed outdated yet endearing at the same time. "Everything smells amazing, Evelyn," she said with a soft smile, as if to validate my efforts, a feeble attempt to soothe the rage simmering just beneath the surface. "Can you give the sauce a taste for me?" My heart raced, that steady voice of familial obligation echoing in my ears. "Sure, mother," I replied, stirring the thick sauce once more before lifting the spoon to my lips. The tang of sweetness intertwined with a hint of herbs exploded in my mouth. But the taste felt muddled, a mixture of anxiety and anticipation, fueled by what was sure to be an electric conversation at the table. Dinner is served. I heard my father call out, his commanding voice draping the house like a heavy curtain just before the worst of the drama began. As everyone settled into their seats, I felt myself shrinking into the background, a shadow beneath the spotlight of family perfection. My sister beamed as she took her place next to our father, and I sat across from her, my heart thumping wildly. "Who wants to offer the blessing?" my mother asked, her eyes scanning the table filled with food. I felt the holy spirit of obligation looming behind me, pushing me forward. "Evelyn." "Sure," I replied, the panic tightening my throat as I clasped my hands together. "Thank you for this meal and for our family," I stumbled through my words. "Please help us remember we are lucky to have each other." My voice cracked at the end, and I quickly looked down at my plate, embarrassed. "Good job, dear," my mother said, offering a smile filled with warmth that only felt half genuine. My father muttered an amen, and my sister nudged me with her elbow, her grin widening. "Oh, that was sweet." But inside, I felt a storm brewing. The spaghetti was now in front of us, steam curling into the air, bringing with it the heaviness of confrontation, not just the sauce, but the burden of expectation. My mother started to talk about the weather, the neighbors, and some ridiculous little mishap at her work. I focused on my food, chewing thoughtfully, longing for a distraction from the tension creeping in like a stubborn shadow. After a few minutes of normal chatter that felt completely disingenuous, I decided I could not take it anymore. Can we talk about Dad's health?" The words slipped from my mouth without warning, breaking the pretense like glass shattering against a hard floor. Silence filled the air, heavy and oppressive, my mother's brow furrowed. "What do you mean, Evelyn?" "Your father is doing just fine." I could see the way my mother's fingers danced nervously with her napkin. She hated when I brought up uncomfortable truths. "But everyone says his memory is getting worse," I stammered as I forced the words out. "He forgot the dates of all our family events, and that is no reason to start worrying. He's of a certain age, you know," my father interjected, his voice laced with irritation. "I am not losing my mind. Nothing is wrong here." His eyes burned into me like brandishing swords, and my heart raced at the tone in his voice that spoke of dismissive fury. I pushed back against the rising tide of fear and stepped into the fray, emboldened by anger. "But what about when he tried to call your sister by another name, Dad? Or when he forgot to pay last month's bills? Isn't that alarming?" "A little forgetfulness isn't unusual at his age, Evelyn." "This is ridiculous," my mother clamored, her voice raising slightly, and I sensed the power shift with each exchange. The air felt electric as my sister's face turned from bubbly laughter to cautious concern, and I could see her little mask of perfection beginning to crack. "Evelyn, you need to calm down. You know how Dad is. He is fine." "No, Caitlin, this is about the inheritance, isn't it?" I spat the words out, unleashing my inner fury. "How will we manage it all? If something happens to him, it's going to be a mess, or worse, will it get unfairly divided?" Or, my stomach dropped as I took in their reactions, pure shock and disbelief laced with a hint of resentment. My mother spoke shakily. "No one's going to take anything from anyone, Evelyn. Stop being so dramatic." But I had seen the way she squeezed her fingers together, the slight tremor betraying her panic. "This is about justice, about fairness, Mom." "Justice?" My father replied incredulously, his face blazing red. "What do you know about fairness? The way you cut ties with us when you went off to New Orleans for that stupid job?" Tension boiled in the air, so thick I wanted to choke. "I did what I had to do. You never bothered to look for me," I exclaimed, the words pouring out faster than my thoughts. "Exactly, because you chose them over us." My father's voice was hard as his words clawed at the edges of reason, and as I looked around the table, I saw it, the unspoken rift forming, simmering between siblings and parents alike. The clatter of cutlery fell silent, and I could see my sister's silence growing heavier, like an anchor dragging her down with each second. She was caught in the crossfire, both wanting to defend her father and grappling with the strange truth rising from my heart. "I expect more from you, Evelyn," my mother finally said in a quiet voice, almost breaking, as though the weight of the moment was finally sinking in. Our family was unraveling before our eyes. "Why would you bring up such divisive topics at dinner? We have to stick together, not tear each other apart." "Maybe sticking together means talking about our issues, Mom. Maybe honest discussions will bring us back to the love we once had." I felt my pulse racing, adrenaline surging through me while a realization struck. This was not just a family dinner, it was the beginning of something greater. "You are out of line," my mother shouted, her face now flushed with anger. "You think you can just disrupt our happy family with your accusations and demands? You are selfish." Tears welled in my eyes, the betrayal of ages cutting deeper than any knife in the kitchen. Selfish. "I have been trying to protect us all, trying to get us to address what comes next, and all you want to do is pretend everything is perfect." The table felt like it was teetering on the edge, my voice breaking as I realized how true my words were. "Because it is not perfect and it never will be again." My brother's voice stopped the moment in its tracks, cascading through the tension like a sudden clap of thunder. What you both fail to see is that life is unfair. You think you are the only one suffering through this, don't you? We are all trying to hold on to what little we have. He slammed his fist on the table, the clanging sound echoing in the silence that followed. What do you mean? My sister whispered, breaking the stillness, reality dawning in her eyes as though she was seeing it all for the first time. My heart thudded heavy in my chest. I was waiting for the storm, for the fear to rise like the bubbling of the pasta pot we left unattended on the stove. And then just like that, the door swung open, revealing my grandfather, his eyes sharp and assessing. What is going on here? I could hear the commotion from 2 blocks away. Why can't you all just be civil? That was the moment the true weight of chaos settled in like a thunderstorm about to crash. I felt my breath hitch in my throat, the air strained and electric as he stepped closer, his furrowed brow more pronounced, signifying the tension thickening with each exchanged breath. The layers of familial damage, the festering resentment, all finally bubbling to the surface. I realized then, perhaps for the first time, that the unfolding family drama was now a high-stakes game where debts were owed, and secrets swirling like smoke in the air were about to ignite the biggest confrontation we had yet to face. I wouldn't back down, not this time. Wrath intertwined with fear coursed through me as I prepared for the unfolding battle ahead. This scene would not end cleanly. It would resonate through the fabric of our family for ages. And I felt an undeniable calm settling in as I steeled myself for whatever puzzles had yet to be revealed. Sit down, it's not just a family dinner anymore, I said, my voice firm against the roar of uncertainty. Tonight we put everything on the table, secrets included. I stood at the edge of our living room, my heart pounding so hard I could almost hear it echo against the walls. My fingers brushed the surface of the coffee table, feeling the cool wood beneath my touch. I breathed in the familiar scent of my childhood home, mingled with the faint aroma of burnt coffee from earlier in the day. My family was gathered for what they thought would be a typical Sunday dinner, but I had other plans. I watched as my mother set the table with her usual precision, expertly placing the matching plates and silverware, her movements practiced and routine. She seemed oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface, but I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Are you ready for a special announcement? My mother called, her cheery voice breaking the tension in the air as she looked back, her smile beaming. I could feel a lump forming in my throat. I imagined my father would try to use this moment to soften the blow of what was coming. That somehow they would spin the news into something sweet, masking the poison that lurked underneath. But I needed them to understand where I stood now. My brother sat at the far end of the table, his fingers scrolling through his phone. He hardly looked up, too engrossed in whatever social media drama was unfolding in his world. My sister was perched beside him, her hair perfectly curled, a picture of effortless beauty. I hated to admit it, but her features were as sharp and defined as our father's. The way she tossed her hair over her shoulder only added to my growing resentment, especially knowing how favored she was. What is it, Mom? We already know you've got some big news, my sister quipped, rolling her eyes with an exaggerated sigh. You really dragged us all here for an announcement. You could have just sent a group text. I clenched my fists, feeling the anger simmering within me. My sister never failed to cut down our parents, treating them with a casual mockery that disturbed me. I turned my gaze back to my mother, who seemed unbothered, still glowing with that undeniable warmth that could light up a room. It's more than just an announcement, my mother insisted, her tone swinging from lighthearted to almost solemn. Your grandfather has decided it is time to address the family's future, especially the inheritance. My heart skipped. The word hung in the air like a thick fog, and suddenly every mind in the room was torn between the excitement of wealth and the darkness of family secrets. My brother finally looked up, eyes wide with interest, and my sister smirked as if she were anticipating a gift unwrapped. Sounds like an important meeting, my brother continued, sarcasm dripping from his words. Or are we talking about Dad's collection of baseball cards again? I thought we Mercers got over the who gets what drama. I felt the tension twist tighter around my chest as I tried to meet my brother's gaze, but he had already turned toward our father. That is no joke, my father replied, his voice gruff and steady. The firm lines of his face were a mask of discomfort, making me wonder if he felt the impending weight of my grandfather's words hanging over us too. Your grandfather has put a lot of thought into this, and it is important we all listen. As the dinner progressed and food was served, steaming plates of lasagna and garlic bread, I could feel my insides twisting. The warm scent filled the air, but all I could taste was betrayal. The past few months had been agonizingly slow as my grandfather's health declined, but I had built a brave face, convincing myself that I could handle whatever was thrown my way. Yet my mother's words about the future kept echoing in my mind. I knew that she and my sister believed they were entitled to more than their fair share of my grandfather's estate. So, who is Granddad leaving what? I hope it is the car, my sister said, laughing while pushing a piece of lasagna around her plate. Her laughter was like a knife, cutting through the mumbled conversations around us. I went pale. That's not all there is at stake, I said, my voice more shaky than I wanted. A twist of bitterness seeped through my veins as I looked at my sister. It's not just about a car or toys from his past, it is about the family legacy. I could feel my cheeks flushing and I refused to let tears well up. My mother turned to me, her brows knitted with confusion and concern. Sweetheart, you're being dramatic. It's just money, it's what he would want. Just money, something in her tone made my gut churn. It was as if she couldn't comprehend that this was about love, connection, and sacrifice, things none of them truly valued anymore. This isn't just money to me. It's everything we built through blood, sweat, and tears, I insisted, my voice rising, catching the attention of my father's stern eyes. It cannot just get tossed around like a toy for you both to squabble over. My hands were shaking slightly now, and I hated the way I felt exposed. Then what would you know about it, Evelyn? My brother snapped, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed defensively. Seems to me like you're just clutching at straws. You are the one who has distanced yourself from the family. Maybe if you actually participated once in a while instead of isolating up in your room, you'd understand. The stares from my sister and brother felt like ice water pouring over me, chilling my very essence. I know a lot more than you think, I shot back. My childhood wasn't about material possessions but memories made. I gestured toward the family photos hanging on the wall, framed moments that now felt tarnished by my siblings' greed. Those are what mattered, and it's terrible you cannot see that. Memories don't pay the bills, Evelyn. Money does, my sister chimed in, flashing a smirk. That is the reality we live in. The tension in the room was palpable. I could almost taste the bitterness lingering between us. And then, finally, the doorbell rang, shattering the stifling silence. Finally, someone interesting. My sister stood up, her chair scraping against the wooden floor. She bounded to the front door like it was a lifeline, leaving a trail of discontent behind her. My heart raced as I tried to focus on my breathing. I knew I had to stay strong. My brother shrugged and returned to his phone, barely acknowledging the commotion. Whatever, he muttered under his breath, but his gaze flickered toward the door. In that moment, I realized we all felt the same tug of curiosity about the unknown visitor and what it would mean for our chaotic gathering. My mother sighed, making her way to the door with an air of impatience. I hope it's someone with some common sense, she grumbled while unlocking the door. We have been trying to have a serious family discussion for once. I held my breath, my heart racing wildly. I wanted to make sure I was ready for whatever would come through that door. As the door swung open, a gust of cool air rushed in, scattering the scent of lasagna. I could see my grandmother's silhouette outlined against the dim hallway. The tension in the room shifted once more, pulling tight like a taut rubber band. I could feel all eyes on her as she stepped into the bright light, and my heart sank. She had a determined glint in her eye, and I knew that whatever she would say next, it would change everything. Evelyn, my grandmother called, her voice strong and unmistakably firm. I must speak with you now. Like a spark igniting fire, I felt the tension in my chest tight. Me, I stammered, the surprise mixing with a rush of anticipation and dread. I could see the curiosity written on my mother's face, while my siblings exchanged glances of confusion. Yes, you, my grandmother confirmed, stepping forward with an urgency I rarely saw from her. In private. There was no room for argument, and my stomach twisted with intrigue and foreboding. As I followed my grandmother into the hallway, I could hear my mother's voice diminishing behind me, a soft murmur of protest as the door clicked shut. The air outside the cozy warmth of our dining room felt like a breeze of fresh energy mixed with uncertainty. What is it, Grandma? I asked softly, trying to keep my voice steady. Her eyes searched mine, the weight of my mother's betrayal evident in her expression. Listen carefully, Evelyn. Your grandfather has kept secrets for years, secrets that could change everything for you. I hesitated, my heart raced. What kind of secrets? I asked, my voice lowering. Ones that could disrupt your family's dynamics forever, truths about your inheritance. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Just trust me on this one, she interrupted. You need to hear it before it is too late. I took a deep breath, my mind swirling with possibilities. I could feel the walls closing in around me. Everything was changing, and I would be ready to fight for what was mine. The stakes were rising, and I would not let them betray me without a battle. Are you ready for the truth? She asked, and I felt my breath catch in my throat. Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed from the other room, and I felt my heart plummet as uncertainty washed over me. Whatever was about to be revealed could tip the balance of everything I had hoped to reclaim. I am ready, I whispered, clenching my fists tightly. And with that, I took one step forward into the confrontation that could change everything for our family forever. I'm standing in the living room, the familiar scent of stale air and polished wood absorbing my thoughts, when my sister's voice cuts through the heaviness like a knife. You are just going to stand there. You need to admit you lost. Mom and Dad chose us over you, they always have. Her words echo in my mind, twisting around me, tightening my chest. I swallow hard, my heart racing. The space between us feels charged, alive with the weight of unspoken truths, resentment, and a hint of satisfaction from her victorious glare. Chosen? Oh, there's plenty of choosing in this family, all right, I counter, trying to keep my voice steady. I can feel the heat rising from my pounding heart to my cheeks as I recall the countless times I was overlooked, ignored, or cut off entirely. I remember the inheritance reading last month when my parents decided to give my brother and my sister the part of the house they grew up in while barely acknowledging my presence. It's not about the house, and you know it. I spit the words out like poison, but deep down, my hands shake as I watch my sister cross her arms, a perfect picture of smugness. You're just bitter you didn't get anything, aren't you? You're the favorite, but look what happens when you actually have to show up. She tosses her hair over her shoulder and I feel a wave of anger wash over me. It's strange how I can feel so small, so insignificant, and yet so filled with rage all at once. I want to scream that it was unfair and that they always favored her over me, quickest to call her name, always sharing secrets I was never a part of. No matter how many times I was the one trying to support the family while she basked in their glory, it was never enough. Act like this isn't about money too. You get everything and I get left with nothing. I have picked up the pieces for this family and I know you know that, I retort, and my voice cracks just slightly, adding an unexpected sting of vulnerability to my words. I see a flicker of doubt wash over her stoic facade. Good. I've finally rattled her cage a bit. Mom gave you that brand new car for your birthday, so don't pretend. I step closer, the tension bristling in the air. There is so much more to this family than money. You wouldn't understand that because you want it all for yourself. My sister's hand gestures towards the wall, as if she is dismissing me like an irritating fly. Her tone drips with disdain as she tries to flip the conversation back onto blame. You're just too focused on what you didn't get instead of what you still have, us. Us. I let the word hang in the air like a question mark. You mean the us that constantly disregards my existence? Suddenly, the sound of a door slamming echoes from the hallway, vibrating through the house. My father must have just stormed in from work, the orchestration of family chaos intensifying in my mind. The tension is suffocating, and I can feel my stomach knotting as my father's heavy footsteps approach. So how is this lovely family meeting going? My father's voice has this booming quality, the kind that makes you feel small and stupid for talking back. As he enters, I can see the trademark weary expression on his face, his frown lines deepening at the corners of his mouth. It's almost painful to admit how much I've wished for the comfort of his approval, yet here I am, caught in a web of sibling rivalry that feels sickly familiar. Dad, I'm trying to explain, I start, but he cuts me off, a hand raised to silence me. Save it. After all the drama last month, the last thing I need is to hear more nonsense. His words hang in the air like a storm cloud ready to unleash. I can see my sister smirk in the corner of my eye, the victor enjoying the show as I crumble under my father's disdain. Right, because ignoring the problem makes it go away. My voice increases in volume, desperation catching in my throat. You've got favoritism so embedded in your bones that you can't even see what everyone else does. My father's expression darkens, and I can practically hear the stiffening of his resolve. You are a grown woman. It is time you start acting like it. If you want anything from this family, you better shape up and stop being so petty. Petty? You think I am being petty? I feel the heat surging through my veins. You and Mom handed everything over to them without a shred of concern for what I've done for this family. The words escape before I can shut them down, my heart pounding as I watch my father's face transform, a blend of disbelief and irritation crossing his features. Look, Evelyn, he starts, but I see my sister leaning against the wall, her posture relaxed, actively enjoying the spectacle. It ignites something within me, a flame I didn't know I carried. I don't want to hear any more about how you feel wronged. You are fine and you always have been. You need to grow up and accept reality. The very reality he's talking about is precisely what makes my stomach turn. Growing up means shaking off the disappointment and pretending like I didn't spend countless nights spiraling into the depths of my own self-doubt, feeling invisible while my siblings flourished. Reality? I can barely hold back the tremor in my voice. Reality is that I was never good enough for you or Mom. It's always been clear whom you favored. Is that what success looks like for you? Favoring certain children while pretending the others don't exist? Evelyn, you are just angry about not getting the house. This is not the place to air your grievances, my father says sharply, his tone shifting to one that brooks no argument. I see the way he turns away sharply, taking a classic fatherly stance of abandonment, refusing to acknowledge the hurt he's caused. I freeze, my breath hitching in my throat. My hands feel clammy as I fight back tears that threat to spill. My chest tightens as my father swipes a hand through his graying hair, dismissing the emotional burden I've tried to share so many times. The way he shuts me down feels like a betrayal deeper than any familial conflict I've faced. Tell me you're not going to pretend like I don't exist anymore, I almost plead. You don't even see how hard I've tried. Evelyn, he grumbles, frustration painting his words. Think about your family instead of wallowing in self-pity. The last word sticks in the air between us like a thorn. My sister's smugness grows more evident, savoring my pain while I try to reclaim my dignity. If you would just admit your mistakes for once, then maybe we could actually talk. The words escape before I can grasp them, almost a whisper, laced with unleashed frustration that leaves me shaken by their boldness. Enough of this, my father snaps back. You are 30 years old. If you want to be treated like an adult, you need to grow up. The coldness of his words numbs me utterly, and for a moment I can't seem to find my breath. The silence swells with unresolved tension, and I can feel my heart pounding loudly against my ribs. This isn't over, I manage to say through clenched teeth, grounding myself against a wave of betrayal sinking deeper. You're right about one thing, my sister chimes in, genuine delight shining in her eyes. This isn't over because you're too stubborn to let it go. Maybe that's the problem, I snap back, matching her intensity. I never let go of the hope that I would be good enough for you, Dad. Maybe I should have yanked it away a long time ago. At that moment, I see my mother standing in the kitchen doorway, her expression a mixture of confusion and concern. I realize I don't want my mother to see me like this, but it's too late. I can't backtrack and pretend I'm okay with being dismissed and overlooked. Evelyn, come here. My mother's voice is soft yet authoritative. Her eyes are pleading, attempting to mask the enormity of what she's gently attempting to address. I am tired, Mom. Tired of feeling like I'm constantly fighting for my worth while they bask in the spotlight. My voice falters, a crack running through it like a fragile glass, and with that break, tears spill from my eyes. Every time I try to speak up, you value my silence more. I wipe my cheeks, heart racing as embarrassment sets in. My mother steps forward, her expression shifting as she takes a hold of my hands, her touch grounding and warm even through the chaos. I never wanted to hurt you. I can hear the sadness in her voice, but it feels too little too late. I feel a rush of emotions, fury, shame, and a drop of hope wavering, a spark threatening to ignite my determination for justice. I deserve better than this. We can work on this as a family, just give it time, she continues, but I can hear my father huffing in annoyance behind her. My mother slowly turns her head towards him, and I see the glint of battle forming in her eyes. We can't keep pretending like nothing is wrong. I refuse to let this become another family drama. My father slams his fist against the counter, and it rattles the dishes. I take a deep breath, pushing myself out of the rawness swirling in the room, feeling a growing resolve. This feels like a turning point. I can't shake the feeling that things are about to change, but just how deep the cuts will go remains to be seen. As hands tremble and emotions jangle, I decide I cannot sit in silence any longer. I'm done being the invisible sister. You all will see me, and I will get what is rightfully mine. The weight of my words brings a shiver down my spine as my mother's eyes widen and my father's stance shifts. Silence descends over the room once again, but this time it's charged with tension, anticipation, and a promise that I will get my revenge one way or another. The door slams as I turn away, walking out of the living room, leaving the echoes of unresolved conflict behind me. As I step outside into the cool Brooklyn air, I wrap my arms around myself, holding close the warmth of determination simmering inside me. I'm not done yet. In fact, this is just the beginning.